Hello Year 10. I am going to talk you through Act 1, Scene 1 of Merchant of Venice so that we can look a little more closely at Antonio and Bassanio's relationship from the very start of the play. Contextually, what you need to know should hopefully be done in some research tasks as part of your home learning. My sole job right now is to talk you through a condensed version of the scene. So you'll see that I've got some little dots on the page where I've chopped bits out, and I'll just talk you through what they're saying. I'll read through with you and make sure that we make some annotations as we're going. It would be really handy if you could have a copy of the scene and do your own annotations as well, because it would just help you, or take down some quotes and notes as I'm talking through. Okay? So Act 1, Scene 1 starts with Antonio stating, "In sooth, I know not why I'm so sad. It wearies me. You say it wearies you, but how I caught it, found it, or came by it, what stuff 'tis made of, where it is born, I am to learn. And such a want-wit sadness makes of me that I have much ado to know myself." So Antonio is pointing out that he just himself doesn't really understand why he's feeling so sad, and metaphorically all at sea. Although, as you'll go on to see, Salarino says, "Your mind is tossing on the ocean, there where your argosies with portly sail, like signors and rich burghers on the flood, or as it were the pageants of the sea, do overpeer the petty traffickers, that curtsy to them, do them reverence, and they fly by with them with their woven wings." So although he's metaphorically at sea at this point, Salarino feels that maybe Antonio feels sad because of his argosies, which are his belongings on the ships. His ships en masse are out at sea. He is a tradesman, as you should know by now. He's a merchant. Therefore, a lot of what he does is import and export goods. And at the moment, his ships are all out of port, all in the process of transferring a product from one place to another in order to make Antonio money. And Salarino feels that maybe that is a realistic expectation of why Antonio feels maybe a bit sad. So just as a recap then, Antonio points out that he's feeling not too great. But also we've got argosies, which are his ships, and they will be mentioned again quite importantly throughout the play. Antonio then goes on, so we've got a ... here. This is me just chopping out a proportion of the scene so that we can whiz through it on here. "Antonio, I hold the world, but as the world, Gratiano, a stage where every man must play a part, and mine a sad one." This is quite a famous line here. This points out that in the world is somewhat like a stage, and that everybody has their role to play in it. And he just feels that at the moment his role is to be the sad person of the story. But this also links us a little bit to the genre that we are looking at here with The Merchant of Venice. So Gratiano replies, "Let me play the fool, with mirth and laughter let old wrinkles come." This is important because Merchant of Venice is in fact a comedy, and a fool being a silly person. Gratiano is the fool of our comedy here. I've just chopped out an awful lot, and you can see that exunt, which means exit, Gratiano and Lorenzo leave. They talk a lot about how Gratiano speaks an infinite deal of nothing. He's ridiculed somewhat by the other men, in the text. And also, when we get to the court scene, you'll see that he's the person up in the viewing area that keeps shouting out things. He's just generally the silly character that they don't necessarily take quite so seriously. However, he does have a happy ending with Nerissa. So when he says, "Let me play the fool," this is a link to this statement here about every man must have a part. And in this comedy, there are certain roles that we need to adhere to. So you will have somebody who needs to learn a lesson. And that person is going to be Shylock, who we'll look at in Act 1, Scene 3. You've also got quite often these foolish characters, these silly characters like Gratiano. And then you have got a range of other characters who will make sure that they fit the comedy genre by puns and silliness. They will also be love triangles and different relationships forming, as is a key theme within the comedy genre. And furthermore, there will be quite often cross-dressing across Shakespeare's comedy genre. So moving on, after Gratiano and Lorenzo leave the scene, we've got Antonio talking to Bassanio, who has entered in this time frame. Is that anything now? Bassanio replies, Gratiano speaks an infinite deal of nothing, more than any man in all Venice. His reasons are as 2 grains of wheat hidden 2 bushels of chaff. You can't work him out. Gratiano is so sort of silly, if you like. You can't always work out what he's saying. You shall seek all day, and ere you find them, and when you have them, they're not worth the search. So when you're finally trying to work out what Gratiano is talking about, it's not necessarily worth the wait to find out what it was. Antonio says, well, tell me now, what lady is the same to whom you swore a secret pilgrimage that you today promised to tell me of? Bassanio, 'tis not unknown to you, Antonio, how much I have disabled mine estate. This here tells us that Bassanio has lost money. He doesn't directly answer the question Antonio's just asked him about which lady he is in love with. We are about to find out that that is the character of Portia. So, by something showing a more swelling port than my faint means would grant continuance. I'm just going to flick over onto the next scene for you. Nor do I now make moan to be abridged for such a noble rate, but my chief care is to come fairly off from great debts, wherein my time, something too prodigal, hath left be gauged. To you, Antonio, I owe the most. So we've got a little note here to let us know as the audience that already Bassanio owes Antonio money. He owes him money. He also owes him love. They are a very close friendship. There are questions residing over how much Antonio cares for Bassanio and whether or not that feeling is reciprocated. Bassanio clearly is heterosexual. He pursues Portia and marries Portia. Antonio, we never get an answer over, and we cannot simply label him. But it does make us question the depth of his love for Bassanio. And from your love, I have a warranty to unburden all my plots and purposes, how to get clear of all the debts I owe. So he knows that with the help of Antonio's love, he can hopefully clear his debts. Antonio replies, I pray you, good Bassanio, let me know it. And if it stand, as you yourself still do, within the eye of honour, be assured my purse, my person, my extremest means lie all unlocked to your occasions. We've got a triple here, emphasising from Antonio how much he's prepared to give and to what lengths he'll go to. He's prepared to give his money, his life, and the extremist means. He'll go to any length to back up Bassanio, and they all lie unlocked to him. I've now chopped another passage out to jump forward to where Bassanio explains who the lady is that was previously asked about. In Belmont is a lady richly left, and she is fair and fairer than that word, of wondrous virtue. Sometimes from her eyes I did receive fair speechless messages. Her name is Portia, nothing undervalued to Cato's daughter, Brutus's Portia, nor is the wide world ignorant of her worth. For the 4 winds blow in from every coast, renowned suitors, and her sunny locks hang on her temples like a golden fleece, which makes her seat of Belmont's cultured strand, and many Jasons come in quest of her. O my Antonio, had I but the means to hold a rival place with one of them, I have a mind presages me such thrift that I should questionless be fortunate. What's really interesting here is we also learn about Portia in this scene. So we get to see that Antonio and Bassanio are extremely close. But as I've already mentioned, Bassanio is in love with Portia. However, he doesn't just come out with, in Belmont, I love Portia. He says in Belmont is a lady richly left. As an opening statement about Portia, this makes us realise that everybody's interested in her for money. She's richly left, literally. Metaphorically, she's rich in many aspects. She's considered fair, fairer than that word. She's so fair, there's almost no chance of Bassanio coming up with how beautiful she is. And also how virtuous. She is kind, she's giving, she's loving. She's all the good things about humans that humans should have. So she has every aspect of her that makes her richly left. But the fact that the first thing we talk about here makes us is the idea of richly does make us wonder how much Bassanio is focused on money. Now, that's not me telling you that all he's concerned about is money and he's marrying Portia for her money. But it could be that the money is such an issue for Bassanio, as we've seen up here. He is in debt, so it's always on his mind, and he knows that Portia is richly left. He says that he did reach fair, speechless messages. So there's just been looks of love between them. And then he finally reveals that her name is Portia, and he likens her to the historical story of Cato's daughter, Brutus's Portia, who was known for being an amazing, beautiful woman. Nor is the wide world ignorant of her worth. So it's not just Bassanio that is aware of her worth. And there's that word again, worth. Could be discussed as being to do with money. Could be the kindness. Could be the love. But on the surface value, it looks like he's talking about money again. The rest of the world knows about her worth. For the four winds blow in from every coast renowned suitors. Renown suggests that these are notable men, notable suitors, men of worth themselves. And they are blowing in from every coast and every corner of the world to come and try and win Portia's hand in marriage. So Bassanio has got stiff competition. Hang on her temples like a golden fleece. So it talks about her sunny locks there. She's got lovely blonde or fair hair. And the reference to golden fleece is a reference to Jason and the Argonauts. And you can see Jason mentioned down here. So hang on her temples like a golden fleece, which makes her the seat of Belmont Coaches' strand. And many Jasons come in quest of her. Oh, my Antonio, had I but the means to hold a rival place with one of them, I have a mind presages me such thrift that I should questionless be fortunate. He feels he could win her love if he had the money to battle against them. Antonio, thou knowest that all my fortunes are at sea. So Antonio already sees, he hasn't been asked for anything, but he senses that Bassanio is about to ask him for money. And he says, I can't give you any money, my fortunes are at sea. They're all tied up in his argosies that we've already read about. Neither have I money nor commodity to raise a present sum. Therefore go forth, try what my credit can in Venice do. Credit being a loan, he's suggesting that rather than him giving him money, maybe Bassanio could go into Venice and ask a usurer to lend him some money under Antonio's name, almost like mortgaging his ships out at sea. That shall be racked even to the uttermost to furnish thee to Belmont, to fair Portia. So use that money, get yourself to Belmont so that you can try and win Portia's hand. Go presently inquire, and so will I. So they're both going to go out and see what money they can secure. Where money is, and I no question make, to have it of my trust or for my sake. So as he'd already stated, he is happy to give not only his purse, but the most extremist of measures. He will put himself forward to guarantee the loan that Bassanio needs. And this shows that both Antonio and Bassanio have a very close friendship, the closest out of all of the gentlemen that we see within their group of friends. And quite clearly, Antonio is prepared to go to great means to support his friend.